So, guys, could I just refer to the Western Australia Vaccine Safety Surveillance Annual Report, page 28.
Sorry, Senator, I will get there.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Thank you.
That's okay. Now, and I'd like to think you're up to speed with this already, but that's why I provided the documents. It says, there's a table there at 8.1, page 28, that the rate of adverse events per 100,000 doses is 264.1 for COVID-19 vaccines versus non-COVID vaccines of 11.1. Now, that's per dose. So that effectively means that the rate of adverse events for the COVID vaccine is 24 times higher than non-COVID vaccines. This is the Western Australian safety data from 2021, and that's per dose. And I note that in order to be up to speed with the COVID vaccine, you needed either 2 or 3 doses. So that's at least 50 to 75 times higher rate of event to be, assuming you need 3 doses a year, than non-COVID vaccines. Given the higher rate of injury, do you think that the COVID vaccine has a much higher risk of adverse event than normal vaccines, based on this real-world data from the Western Australian government?
So thank you very much for that question, Senator. And I would highlight that there are a couple of features that I had intended to explain in my previous answer around adverse event reporting, and I think that they're relevant to this answer. There are issues of causality. Obviously, one is that we do frequently see adverse events after vaccination of any kind, and that does not necessarily mean that there is a causal link. It can be a temporal link. Secondly, I think it's important to note that the adverse events that were reported in the Western Australian Vaccine Safety Surveillance Report, which again, as I mentioned previously, is one of a number of different surveillance mechanisms that we use to identify signals, is that many of them were quite mild and expected.
Okay, so then could I ask you to refer to page 11, the table on page 11, now that you've seen that figure? Go to the bottom set of figures, please. Because I dispute that. Because if you actually look at the figures in 2021 down the bottom right-hand side, you will see that 48% of people who reported an adverse event to the COVID vaccine went to the emergency department, and 9% was admitted to hospital. Now, that's 57% of people who reported an adverse event actually went to hospital. That's twice as high, if not higher, than in prior years for non-COVID vaccines. So I think it's not fair to say that these are mild events.
No, I appreciate that, and I understand that there has been discussion around the use of the term mild events previously.
Yeah.
And I appreciate absolutely the fact that those who have experienced vaccine injury would find that a diminishing term, and it's certainly not in that way intended. What I'm saying is that there are a proportion of injuries that are to be expected following COVID or any other vaccination. The other element
I get sorry to interrupt you there,
Yeah,
but my point is the rate of injury is much higher with the COVID vaccines. That's what these figures prove, because they're real-world figures of, say, a population of 2.5 million people. It's significantly higher.
Yeah, again, appreciate that. I think it's also important to note, and it was noted within the report itself, that those undertaking the survey and the collection of data did not specifically ask patients or participants why they accessed medical care in the days following treatment. I think it's also important to note as well...
can I say that's the fault of the reporting system? I mean, we're rolling out a novel vaccine here,
Yeah.
So... that's not my fault. That's their fault.
No, it's absolutely not your fault. I do find it, though, Senator. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt, but I find it challenging to rely on one part of the report as representative of a problem with a vaccine, and then to discharge another, dismiss another part of the report as a fault to the reporting.
It's a
and it's one of the many signals that we look at.
Large sample.
It's one of the many signals that we incorporate in terms of our determination. The other thing I would indicate that there is. What we call the Hawthorne effect, which is that there will be a change in the reporting when there is a significant focus on a disease. And I think it's very important to note, and this is in part why we encourage both health professionals and the community to report adverse events, because we want to be picking up those signals. But it actually says on page 28, as you've highlighted, that the surveillance of routine vaccines was a small component of the workload. So,
No, that's right.
So people expect, to a certain extent, to have vaccine after effects, whether we characterise them as adverse events or injuries. They expect to have vaccine after effects after a routine vaccine.
Thank you.
There is a more prompt pickup after.
Okay, thank you. So, sorry, I've just got to keep moving on.
Authorised G. Rennick, LNP Chermside.